Be near, O Lord, to those who wait, who watch and who weep tonight. Give your angels charge over those who sleep. Rest your weary ones. Heal your sick ones. Tend your dying ones. And pity your afflicted ones. All in your love's name. Amen.
Let the children come to me, and forbid them not, for to such belongs the kingdom of God.
My dear friends, Jesus spoke about how precious and important children and young people are to God. I want to remind you that you are precious and important to His church as well, and that you are an essential part of our Catholic community. Unfortunately, the sexual abuse of children and young people is an all too common tragedy in our society and has been a problem even in the church. Now we are working to rectify the mistakes of the past, and we are promoting programs like this one, developed by the Archdiocese of Atlanta, to be of help, especially to you. My dear young friends, remember that the whole church needs you to manifest the love of Jesus in every aspect of your lives. We count on you to put our Catholic values into practice for the welfare not only of the church, but of the world.
Sex abuse is among the sins that cry to heaven. It is a tragedy and a crime. Because of recent events in our church and communities, we're going to spend some time discussing sexual abuse. What it is, who abuses, symptoms to help identify those who have been abused and how to report it, and how to heal the deep wounds inflicted. We will be talking about your safety, your physical and spiritual safety. Each of you, every person watching this presentation is a marvelous creation. You are unique in all the world and in all of history. You matter. You are so important to us that we want to help you learn how to be physically safe and also how to keep your soul safe so that you can experience the joy and the awesome beauty of loving as God created us to love. A parent, a step-parent, a grandparent, siblings or another relative, a boyfriend, a teacher, a priest. Contrary to popular belief, statistics show that most victims of sexual abuse knew their abusers. It's a hard subject to talk about, but to end sexual abuse, we must listen and have the courage to act when necessary. It's time to light the darkness. Let's start by defining sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is any behavior that degrades a person's dignity for another person's own sexual gratification. Let's get this straight. It is any behavior that degrades a person's dignity for another person's own sexual gratification.
Father G was a family friend. Everyone liked him. He was witty, and I felt special when he remembered to ask about certain things going on in my life. When I was 16, he came over to our house one afternoon to play tennis with my mom and me. After the tennis match, we came back to our house, and I got cleaned up for my parents' anniversary dinner that night, while Father and my mom chatted in the kitchen. As I was coming out of my bedroom, Father G met me by the door to say goodbye. When he hugged me, I felt his hand under my skirt run up my leg and then grab my underwear. He let go and walked down the hall. I couldn't tell you what he or I said. I stood there, stunned. Later, outside the restaurant that night, I posed for a picture with my smiling parents, and I look back at that picture today and still wonder why it took almost 20 years to tell my parents he touched me.
Sexual abuse comes in many forms. It can be a touch, or no touching may be involved at all. Often the sexual abuse begins gradually and is so subtle that it affects your ability to recognize your own opinion about the things that are happening. You may be confused. If the abuse involves touching, it may not hurt and may even momentarily feel good. This can cloud your ability to articulate the abuse, or you might be confused enough to think that it is okay and that your own feelings are wrong and not the actions of the abuser. Sometime later, however, you will realize the deception and then often carry the misplaced burden of guilt. Children between the ages of 7 and 13 and those who appear isolated, depressed, or lonely are more likely targets of sexual abuse offenders. Sexual abuse within the general population of the United States occurs in all social groups and doesn't depend on how much money your family has. Girls are more likely than boys to be targets of sexual abuse, but the number of male victims is significant. Who are sexual abuse offenders? According to statistics, sexual abuse offenders also are more likely to be male, although females do also offend. They may have a history of drug or alcohol abuse or mental illness and have distorted views of sex, as well as little, if no regard for other people's personal boundaries. They may lack mature relationships with other adults and prefer the company of children. While sexual abuse offenders do not fit into any specific category, you should be aware of common behavioral signs of potential abusers. They are more comfortable being with kids and teens, and in fact have many skills in relating to them. They may choose professions or volunteer work that bring them into contact with children, giving them more of an opportunity to court potential victims. Be aware that sexual abuse offenders will try to manipulate you. After they've gained your trust and favor, the process called grooming, they may introduce you to physical touch or pornography in ways that entrap you, making you feel responsible and guilty for agreeing to cooperate with the sexual abuser. Always remember, though, that you are not to blame no matter how deeply involved you are. Sexual abuse is an adult's abuse of power. They carry the blame. Potential abusers may also groom a likely victim by giving gifts to him or her without the parent's consent. Sexual abusers may also put you through a series of tests to see if you would be likely to tell your parents. They will eliminate kids who are more likely to report sexual abuse. Sexual abuse offenders may go overboard in touching children, crossing over appropriate boundaries as they interact with them. And they often act as if the rules don't apply to them. Another way they win you over is by letting you do things your parents would not allow you to do. They want you to see them as a friend, and then will begin to use your trust for the purpose of their sexual pleasure. It is possible that a stranger, or even someone you know, may exhibit one or some of the above behavioral signs and not be a sexual abuse offender. However, the more warning signs a person exhibits, the greater the need there is to monitor that person's behavior, particularly when you or someone you know interacts with that person. If you have a sense that a person is too extreme, do not deny your instincts of what may be true. Sexual abuse offenders will go many places to find potential victims, public areas such as schools and malls, but your home and your computer are also places he may visit as well. One of the best ways to prevent sexual abuse is to avoid being an easy target. No one likes to think about the possibility of being sexually abused. Knowing more about how you can protect yourself can increase your ability to avoid being an easy target. Since most of those who sexually abuse are male, it's best to find a woman if you are ever lost or in need of help. It is also important to let your parents or someone you trust know who you are with and where you are at all times. In his book, Protecting the Gift, Gavin de Becker speaks specifically to the vulnerability of teenage girls to being targets of sexual abuse. His advice on self-protection, however, goes beyond gender and age. To a request or demand that makes you feel uncomfortable, learn to use the one-word sentence: no. An explanation is not needed. A red flag should go up if you say no to someone and he or she pushes you to change your mind. Likewise, if someone touches you in a way that makes you feel scared, weird, or uncomfortable, you should say words that mean no. then get away from that person as quickly as possible and tell an adult you trust. This is the know, go, tell rule. Listen to your intuition, your inner voice. If you have an uneasy feeling towards a situation or person, refuse to spend time with him or her. Never keep secrets about touching. Remember, it is okay for you to say no to an adult's request if that request makes you feel uncomfortable. Trust your instincts when you decide whom you will spend time with, particularly when you might be alone with a person you just met or who has begun to show interest in you. To avoid being an easy target, De Becker adds, remember the acronym PC. You should be mindful of your level of privacy, the P, and control, the C, when with someone who has not yet earned your trust. Privacy means never being in a place where someone else is unlikely to show up. These places can be cars, wilderness areas, a workplace after it has closed, or an empty house. Control is when one person is being persuaded or compelled to be directed by the other. A sexual abuse offender will manipulate how we see things. For instance, a young girl may feel persuaded to do what an abuser asks because she does not want to be injured if she resists, or doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Again, a teenage girl, or anyone for that matter, must be open to signs of a person's intent before she trusts him or her enough to relinquish both privacy and control. Ask questions like, is he ignoring my no? Does my intuition tell me this is a bad idea? Trust comes with time. You can avoid being an easy target by watching for these signals and by making decisions to stay safe. Being sexually abused is a frightening experience. Many are too embarrassed or confused to tell anyone. As friends and family members, you can be observant and listen to the many ways they have of telling you what they are going through. Here are some signs to look for. Symptoms of sexual abuse include a loss of appetite, trouble eating or sleeping. They may withdraw, become aggressive, or be afraid of the dark or have recurring nightmares. Younger children may experience regressive behavior such as thumb sucking, bedwetting, or excessive crying or clinginess. Fear of being left alone or left alone with a particular person or in a particular place may also be signs of abuse. Problems at school, a drop in grades, the refusal to attend school, or serious changes in behavior are also indicators of possible abuse. Victims of sexual abuse may also show signs of depression and may even consider suicide. There's another area of sexual abuse you need to know about, because teens, particularly girls, are susceptible. Date rape. Date rape is when someone is forced to have sex with a date, a friend, or an acquaintance. It is the most common form of rape, with statistics showing that 1 in 4 girls will be a victim of rape or attempted rape before they reach age 25. 3 out of 5 rapes occur before a girl reaches age 18. Besides being physically forced to have sex, date rape includes being coerced emotionally by threats. These threats include injury to your reputation, saying you did it when you really didn't, or saying that you brought it on. Drinking alcohol and drug use are other factors that can put you at risk of being a target. When a person has had too much to drink or is on drugs, she or he cannot consent to having sex, and it is legally rape. When out with others, you should never accept a drink that has already been poured or is in an opened container, as certain tasteless and odorless drugs can be mixed in. These date rape drugs, when consumed, can leave you unconscious or with limited memory. Always keep an eye on your drink. Never consume a drink that you left even for a minute. Be a good friend. by watching out for those you know when you are out. There is safety in numbers. Again, trust your instincts when you decide whom you will spend time with, particularly when you might be alone with someone you don't know very well. New relationships are not the only place where sexual abuse can happen. It can enter into any relationship after its honeymoon period ends.
When someone has been sexually abused, they often tell a friend. It is important to believe that it is true and be supportive. However, do not attempt to handle it by yourself. It is best to immediately involve an adult you trust for the sake of the person who is making the allegation, as well as for that person who has been accused. Never try to see if what your friend is saying is true, or confront the person who is accused of the abuse. Leave that to the professionals. Never promise to keep the person's allegations of physical or sexual abuse a secret. If you have made a secrecy promise, this is a promise that you need to break for the good of the person who trusts you. When someone tells you they've been abused, this is often their cry for help. If your friend has been abused, he or she needs the help of a professional therapist who specializes in the treatment of abuse. This is a really important part of your friend's healing. You should encourage your friend to report the abuse to a trusted adult and civil authorities. If you are unsure of what to do, talk with a trusted adult about the necessary steps to take. Don't be afraid of the crisis. It needs to happen to let the healing occur. Remember to pray for your friend and all those involved.
Discovering that someone has been or is being sexually abused is devastating. The next step is crucial in ending the abuse and bringing about the necessary healing. Sandy McKay has worked as a psychiatric nurse and nurse instructor for 12 years and has worked as a family therapist for 23 years.
Having to tell the secret of having been sexually abused is the hardest thing that a child or an adult will ever have to do. On the same note, finding out that someone has been sexually abused is devastating. The next step is crucial in beginning the healing and in ending the abuse. One should report sexual abuse where there is reasonable suspicion or certainty. Denial that it is true can be a major part of the problem of sexual abuse, hurting the victim deeply and allowing for abuse to continue. Often people ignore signs of abuse, letting fear of the repercussions cloud their judgment. Often there is concern of being wrong and hurting someone wrongly. The person being abused is in fear of losing the love of family members or others. It has been my experience that in most cases, if a person has gone as far as to wonder and has noticed any warning signs, it's a high probability of being true. As difficult as it is, let the painful and frightening experience of telling happen, so healing can occur, even though there will be hurt and the pain of betrayal. Sexual abuse is a crime that occurs in secret, and the secret must be revealed for the healing to occur. Sadly, this almost always involves a further disruption of relationships in one's life. Treatment is often a lifeline out of the dark and is best done as soon as possible, as post-traumatic stress disorder can result if the abuse is kept hidden too long. Not everyone will suffer post-traumatic stress, but it is a danger for those who have had this terrible breach of trust and personal respect. The sooner one discusses the abuse in a professional setting, the more likely a person will experience positive healing and a reduced incidence of this disorder. Also, the child or individual who has experienced abuse may have a continued sense of not being heard and of having no one realize the extent of the problem that he or she faces. We must refer to treatment the individual and the family. Treatment can help a person return to life, internally and externally. Referring and encouraging a survivor and family touched by abuse to seek help is important. To leave the problem buried is a slow death. The need for treatment is imperative. The problem will not just go away. For young children, a skilled therapist can use play therapy to help mend the effects of abuse. For older children and adults, individual therapy, family therapy if appropriate, and support groups can help. Moving from the rage, the pain, and loneliness to forgiveness and love is a slow but sure healing that God, treatment, and the church can effect.